If you live in France or Germany, here's an old and familiar standby for you. A Franco-German summit complete with a joint cabinet meeting and the all-important family photo. As with all family photos, there's the facade and there's the reality. Often of late, the problem's been, well, mild indifference in the Franco-German couple or annoyance over diverging fiscal policies. But now there's a real open sore. In an interview with Germany's largest selling tabloid Bild, the French president effectively chastising Angela Merkel for going rogue when she welcomed the migrants last summer. We'll review his remarks, the response, and see how the rest of Europe's reacting as it tries to reform its asylum policy and enforce a deal to deport refugees and migrants back to Turkey. Will the solution come from the Franco-German couple that's been at the heart of Europe these past decades? Or will everybody go their own way? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about nations that are perhaps drifting apart. And with us from Frankfurt, political commentator Roland Tichy. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome, hello.
Also joining us, Alexis Poulain, director of Euractiv France. Remind us what Euractiv is.
Euractiv is a network of media throughout Europe. We're in 12 countries in 12 languages, and we cover European affairs. And of course, the Franco-German summit is one of them.
All right. And Anne-Marie Le Granec, senior researcher fellow at the prestigious French political science institute Sciences Po. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. First, it was the French Prime Minister. Back in February, he had visited an asylum shelter in Munich, and he stated, "We can't welcome more refugees." At the time, Manuel Valls infuriated his host by also insisting that he didn't think there was a majority in Europe to impose a permanent relocation mechanism for asylum seekers. Well, now there's his boss complaining to Germany's largest selling newspaper about, quote, certain countries who take one-sided measures. He writes, "I'm aware of Germany's efforts and welcome the solidarity the country has demonstrated, but there is no question that we cannot have a repeat of 2015 in 2016. François Hollande, who also said the solution has to be European, everything else would mean an end of Schengen and a return to national borders, a historic setback. Until a few days ago, this danger was very real." Anne-Marie Le Granec, is François Hollande right to tell Angela Merkel she shouldn't have opened the doors last summer?
Well, I think she didn't, in a sense. I mean, she opened them in the sense that she welcomed the refugees, but she didn't open the door. The refugees were there. It started arriving a month and even years before, but months before. And the office, the Federal Office for Migrants and Refugees, was completely overwhelmed with the refugees. Greece was overwhelmed. There was no question of returning refugees back to Greece because Greece could not face its commitments. So Angela Merkel was just saying the reality. She was spelling out the problem, actually. But spelling out the problem, saying we welcome refugees, she also didn't think about the fact that she would create a pull and that the transit countries would be also overwhelmed by refugees. So it was a series of decisions of individuals, of various countries, of officers, and so on and so forth.
So she made the wrong decision.
Yeah, that created the problem. I mean, she didn't create the problem. And she tried to tackle it in a very European way till she couldn't because there was no solidarity.
Alexis Poulain, first Manuel Valls, and those remarks infuriated Angela Merkel. In fact, they're still ringing in her ears, those remarks, the words of the French Prime Minister back in February at a migrant shelter when she addressed reporters this Thursday in the eastern French city of Metz.
I was very happy to meet Manuel Valls today. And to be quite honest, I find that criticism tends to drive me forward rather than anger me.
Alexis Poulain, it's just all right, it's just a bit of rhetoric, or is there a real problem between France and Germany?
Well, there is a real problem between France and Germany is that we don't talk so much, and the so-called European motor that used to be is broken, or at least it's stopped.
There was a joint cabinet meeting today. What do you...
Well, it was one of a very quiet one. We don't expect much from this meeting. There might be some declaration later on COP21. There was they issued a statement about the energetic transition and things like that. But on the refugees, still there are a lot of differences between France and Germany, and I don't think this summit will actually make things better.
So we should read something into the silence that came out of it on the matter of refugees. There was very little on the migrant crisis.
Yes, of course, and it's one of the major issues Europe is facing right now. And if this Franco-German relationship was a working one, there would be some declaration, there would be some proposition on the table for the rest of the European countries to move ahead. But we're still looking back at the other EU Council or EU Summit that happened in the past, and with the so few little migrants numbers that were decided, and the deal with Turkey that is still very fresh in the memories and was not very appreciated by the
What's
French.
your reaction to Hollande's remarks?
Well, I think he stated that that was sort of a quick solution, but not an agreed one or a discussed one, at least at EU level, and more of a German side decision.
Ron Tichy, what does it say, the remarks made by François Hollande in that interview with Bild? What does it say about the Franco-German couple today?
Well, it is not a real couple. I mean, there are 2 points French holds for security matters. After the terror bombing in Paris, everybody can understand this. And Angela Merkel tries to do something for the refugee welcome culture which she established last summer, which is part, as we just learned, which is part of the problem of inviting even more refugees and to establish a pull factor which said to the people, come to Germany. And what is missing in the declaration of today's summit is a certain vision of how Europe could handle this problem. It is a long list of things, but no common idea what we should do together to handle the problem. So this is, it's many words and no action.
Anne-Marie Le Grenec, that's important what Roland Tichy just said. You'll recall a few months back, Merkel and Hollande together addressed the European Parliament, and commentators at the time said it's as if they didn't show each other their speeches before they went in to speak.
Exactly. I mean, we have two different situations. We have hardly any refugees coming to France. There is, I mean, up to the 2010s, there were, and this was the main source of I mean, the main aim for refugees. It's not the case anymore. We hardly took any people for relocation. On the other hand, there is this huge number of refugees going to Germany. But if you look at very many different areas, there are so many differences, economic differences, and so on and so forth. We have a very imbalanced couple. This was not the case till a few years ago. This is now the case.
It was already the case between Angela Merkel and François Hollande's predecessor, conservative Nicolas Sarkozy. But it was today it just seems to be complete indifference.
Well, I would... Sorry.
Roland Tichy.
So I would add one more argument. One of the main problems are those different standards for asylum seekers throughout Europe. Germany has the highest standards in both cases of what's law, what's regulation, or who is accepted as a refugee seeker, and on the same hand on social standards. Germany does much social security expenses on refugees, but this is a standard for the Eastern countries. An average worker does not even get in his whole lifetime. And as long as those different standards in Europe exist, there is still this a pull factor to Germany, which will overwhelm every border within Europe. So you cannot have within Europe such an extremely different situation of how you handle the refugee and their social standard of living.
So what you're saying, in effect, is now that we've got this reunified, economically strong and attractive Germany, we should stop pretending that there's this Franco-German couple and that France is on even keel?
Well, we must somehow within Europe come to a conclusion, but what is the depressing lesson of this day is that we awfully, unfortunately, do not see any solution. When I read the declaration of today, I hear something about diversity labels, diversity councils, integration days, diversity days. This is only Harry Potter words for whitewashing a really black problem.
What is missing is solidarity. I mean, this is being missing all along the crisis. I mean, the solidarity not only with refugees, but within Europe. You have very little solidarity. You had a couple of countries taking a number of refugees and others just pulling out of it.
And I got to say, I heard political commentators on that point this morning. When they read François Hollande's interview in Bild, they said, oh, those remarks aren't about Angela Merkel. Those remarks are about pandering to the far-right National Front. Is that a fair cop?
Well, it's two things, I think. To some extent, it's about stabbing Angela Merkel in the back, but also it is an answer.
It's about stabbing Angela Merkel in the back?
In a sense, yes.
Why is that?
I mean, eventually, that's what it comes down to. I mean, just criticizing her very harshly, in particular for the Turkish agreement, which...
I think that's what it is.
Which is true, which is right, I think. But on the other hand, yes, it's pandering to the Front National. It's not only about standards concerning refugees, which are different according to countries in Europe. It's also national situations that are very different. Of course, there is the Alternative für Deutschland, alternative for Germany, but it is so far a protest party with no real threat. It's not a real threat.
And no seats in the Bundestag.
Yeah, it's not a real threat for Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel has been weakened in Germany, but not that weakened. Whereas in the case of France, we have a very weak president, we have very weak parties, and we have a Front National that is getting more and more powerful. So we have very different kind of constellations.
Alexis Poulain?
But yet, I mean, François Hollande has nothing to win by talking to the Front National electorate or saying that there is a reality in France.
A lot of people accuse him and his prime minister especially of doing
Well,
that.
they're trying, but they have nothing to win in this game. Let's be fair, with 15% of people being satisfied by them. It's not the people voting Front National that will turn to them in the coming months up to the running of the presidential election. So they should just be courageous and try to have a different policy, left policy, and show leadership, which is what is lacking in France. Why do you have people coming every night at République for Nuit debout, standing up all night, trying to
This
find
sort of
solutions?
Occupy protest movement we've
Well,
started
they
to see
just
pop up this week.
Yes, and they don't. And it's the Occupy that we had in Wall Street. It's Podemos, and it happens when the country is lost. And France is not lost yet. We have a lot of strong assets in terms of economy and things like that. But politically, France is completely lost. Lost on the map of Europe, lost internally, and lost globally on the big game. And if you look at Europe, nothing will happen before the Brexit vote in the UK in June. People are waiting for what will happen then. But no decision, no great big decision will be taken before this.
Roland Tichy, seen from Frankfurt, is France politically lost?
No, I would not say that France is politically lost, because I wouldn't even agree that the role of Angela Merkel is that safe as was explained by Anne-Marie, because the Alternative für Deutschland now got in the sub-federal level up to 25% of the electorate, and in the polls of today, which are very representative for the federal level, the Social Democrats are on the worst numbers and the worst situation ever since those polls in the 90s were invented.
But the Chancellor herself has the kind of favorable approval ratings that François Hollande can only dream of.
Well, but she's losing ground, and she's losing ground very fast. And the pressure comes from the sub-federal level, because there the parliamentaries are losing their jobs. The Christian Democrat party is losing ground everywhere. The Social Democrats, her partner in the coalition government, this is a typical German situation, such a coalition, due to our electorate laws. So she's losing ground. And this is on the first hand. And this is the reason why in this paper there is nothing, even a vision from her point of view. First. Second, when I hear this sentence of about European solidarity, well, I agree to this formula of solidarity at once, but the situation is that the refugees decide to go, in which country they go. And they decide to go to Germany because the standards for them is the highest. Refugee seeker gets about €1,000 per month in Germany, while the average income of a working man or women in Czechoslovakia or Poland or in the Balkan states is just 200 to 300 euros. So would they go to Romania or to Bulgaria? Never. Would they go to Poland? Never. So they all go to Germany, not as a question of non-solidarity, but just as a question of that human beings decide where would be the situation best for them. They choose it.
I wanted to make a quick point concerning the fact that Angela Merkel is not as weak as she may appear inside the country. That's my main point. And don't forget about the possibility of a green-black coalition. Where she is weak is now inside the European Union, at the European councils. That's the main problem. She has lost her magic touch to bring solutions to the table. The deal with Turkey was very much criticized. She has lost something of her aura within Europe.
The deal with Turkey, the plan to overhaul asylum policy across the EU, it's on the table in Brussels, and we'll be talking about it when we come back in the France 24 debate.